Hey, this is the introduction for my interview with Reuben Demaster, the owner of Willow Haven CSA and Willow Haven General Store. We get started pretty quick after this introduction, so pay attention and enjoy. Please give it a like and share. Thank you. You've built in permanence in the fact that you started off a certain way. So it's sort of like, how do you turn that ship around or steer it a different direction? It's not as easy to do that, and you kind of just continue versus, well, if you start on a different ship or chart a different course.
Yeah, I think the key is that your homestead has to support the people instead of the people being slaves to the homestead, because you can quickly get overwhelmed, and that's when your spouse and your children can easily end up resenting what you're doing.
Sure.
And I've seen it in small farms, seen it in families. As far as I know, by the grace of God, my kids don't resent what we're doing, and they see the value and they love it. But it's a huge danger that if there's not rewards coming from the homestead, and it's not supporting the people. Your homestead is existing for the people, right? It's not existing for the sake of these 200 chickens.
Right. Because you're either going to have neglect of the people or neglect of the animals. That's and the equipment, the facilities.
That's right. Yeah, so
they don't work together.
We've always welcomed other people into our community, and we've done it a number of ways through volunteers, maybe friends, family. We've had people staying on the farm, both as volunteers and employees. And so that's really how we've been able to extend a lot of the things that we're doing, is by me willing to give up some control, giving other people responsibility, and paying attention to the people. I mean, that's really one of probably my main role at this point on a homestead, is that I have to observe, listen to, manage, direct the people for their good and for the good of the homestead. And that that's you never stop learning how to do that, and it doesn't always work perfectly, but it's really what I strive to do.
There's a lot with that, and we haven't gone into that yet.
Yeah,
we shot some videos before we sat down for the interview.
Yeah.
But can you tell us, what do you do? Willow Haven Farm, New Tripoli, Pennsylvania, and you have a farm store too, right? You just opened up a grocery store essentially, right?
Yeah. So we started farming, I would say full time in 2009. We started a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, which it means a lot of different things, but it's essentially a subscription service that people are kind of committing at some level to support you and to buy from your particular farm business. So that was in 2009, and we developed different sales systems over the years. We ended up going to a year-round ordering system, so it is online. We ended up buying other local products, and then we ended up buying products from a little farther away when we couldn't get it locally. And so at this point, we've called it a grocery box or a market box, because you really can get all of the food you need to survive from our online store. There's about 600 items on there. We focus on hard to find things, or definitely organic. And so that's kind of what we were doing through 2020, the last few years. And then our project for 2024 was, we did open what's known as a brick and mortar actual store. So we have Willow Haven Farm General Store operating in a town, Brightingsville, which is about 15 minutes drive from my farm.
Okay.
So that is a separate business operation. It's a separate LLC. It's managed separately, but there's obviously a lot of overlap with the farm. And so that gives us a lot of a lot of FaceTime with people. We're meeting a lot of new people that way. It's been a real joy to do it. Very, again, unexpected blessings. We work with great people. So I can't speak highly enough about it. But the long and short of it is we now manage 100 acres of farmland here. There's 2 farms and some rented land. We make hay off of 40 acres, which is contracted out. I don't do it, I don't have the equipment. We milk up to 6 cows every morning, once a day. We raise pastured poultry and pastured pork. We have a flock of laying hens. We have a bakery, so we're doing sourdough breads made in a brick oven. And we have cut flowers. And I think that's most of what we're doing at this point. Transplants, greenhouse transplants, our farm store on the farm, and farm events, pizza nights, all kind, we talked about a couple things we're not doing anymore, the cheese business, the distillery. So there is truly never a dull moment. There's a lot of activity going on here. So that's what we do.
So why did you and your wife decide on homesteading? And did you decide on homesteading, or did you find yourself just becoming homesteaders?
In the early years of our marriage, I had gone to college, I had gotten a white-collar job, and I just realized, look, I don't actually know how to do a lot of things with my hands. And I don't know, it started growing on me. We had some friends in New Hampshire who built themselves a yurt and lived out in the woods, and we visited them, and we were inspired, I guess. So I just started going to the library, and I would check out every single book in the home improvement section, the gardening section, and the construction section, and I would just read them all.
Okay.
This was like, we had internet back then, but it was not quite as fast, and we didn't use it that much. So I was just reading books.
Back when the internet was a place.
Yeah, back in the 90s. We were married in 97, so there was internet then. Anyway, we moved to the city. So I moved to St. Louis with my wife. Tessa and I moved there with 2 kids. And we were living near my parents. It was technically a suburb, but it was the first suburb out. So we were living very urban lifestyle. Meanwhile, we had this desire for this homesteading, and we joined a CSA, and we visited their farm in Illinois, and I was doing construction. But we kind of knew we were moving out to take over. Tessa's had this family farm. So Tessa's grandfather owned the farm, and her father bought it, but never did the actual farm work. He was a professional button pusher, as he calls himself.
Okay.
So he was a database administrator. And we moved out here particularly for the opportunity to homestead. We had been thinking about it at this point for 6-7 years. So we wanted to be close to family. We wanted to live in the country to raise our family. And we wanted to learn homesteading skills. So that's why we did it.
And so what did that look like the first year?
Oh, first year, yeah, we were gardening. Everyone gets chickens first. You gotta get 5 chickens or 10 chickens.
Yeah.
We did that. We were gardening. So her family garden is 40 by 120 feet. So it is a 4,000 square foot family garden. So learning how to manage that. And then just learning how to maintain a farm, building projects nonstop. You're always repairing something. We did a lot of canning and the freezing at the beginning. And that's how it started. Very, very small, simple. And I was working off the farm, so constant source of frustration, especially all spring and summer when the weather's beautiful, there's so much work to do, and here I am getting in the car at 6 in the morning, driving up to work. And I did get tired of that. I was a cabinet maker. It was kind of my last career before farming. And I would be sitting in a shop making cabinets. I would say I I was average in that particular field. I wasn't particularly good at it, but I was doing the work. We were building high-end things. And just kept thinking, and well, you know, for the amount of money I'm making, maybe I could just stay home and grow vegetables. And so we did end up doing that in 2009. So I ended up quitting my job, and the first month I was home, we had twin girls, so our 5th and 6th child, May of 2009. So, yeah. That's how it started, and it was very overwhelming, very, very, there was a lot to learn. If anyone is going to farm, if you have an opportunity to intern at another farm and learn from other people, it's highly recommended. Because of my stage in life, I didn't have that opportunity, so.
Yeah, did you have any business plan or?
I did, yeah. We started a 30-person CSA, which meant that we were committed to growing vegetables for 30 people every single week. And we did that. We did that for, I don't know how many weeks it was, 18, 20 weeks the first year. And no, it was not enough money to survive on, so I did carpentry projects in the winter for probably the first 5 years I was farming. I just go out, there's always someone who needs a carpentry project done, so
sure.
I would just go work for people. And yeah.
One thing I was curious about when we were in the cow barn was, I guess this could happen in any area of life, but you know, were there ever any difficult times with a sick cow or calf, or you know, what are some, you know, maybe if you could share some of the sorrows of
Sure.
your experience homesteading or with animals, or
Sure. Yeah, I think you definitely have to just determine not to be afraid of failing, because I can't say it enough times. You're going to fail. It's part of working with nature and creation, that things die, and I think that was a pretty hard thing. Once you work with animals, you're guaranteed that the animal is going to die. So ideally, I'm raising this particular animal for a particular purpose, and it's going to die on the terms that I set for it. Right? I want this chicken to grow to this particular size. I want to kill it on this particular day, and then I would like it to be healthy its whole life, and then it's going to serve its purpose. It's going to go into the freezer or whatever.
Yeah.
Some animals you keep longer. So a cow, you know, I want to keep this milk cow for, say, 10 years. And so I have to make sure this cow is healthy, that's maintained, that we take care of it properly. And, but it's the same thing with people. It doesn't always work according to plan. So people get sick, there's illness, people die prematurely, and the same thing that happens with the animals. So we had, well, now we're talking about bird flu, but 13 years ago we had respiratory disease in our chickens, and it was terrible. They were dying. We didn't know what to do, and we eventually had to put a lot of those chickens down. We've had pigs living on pasture. We've lost pigs. Chickens are notorious for finding creative ways to die.
Yeah, they are.
So, unfortunately, every type of predator eats a chicken. So, any dog, fox, any hawk, owls, weasels, raccoons, coyotes, anything will take your chickens. Doesn't matter how secure your housing is, right? They'll get in. So it's certainly, we've had a lot of mornings we've woken up and there's chicken carcasses.
Yeah.
You know, one of the hardest things I think was losing my first cow. And we had this cow, we were milking her, and one morning she was laying in the pasture dead, and we had no idea. She wasn't acting sick, and so we really don't know, did she eat something? So that you feel like a failure. Like, I was in charge of this animal.
Right.
I was trying to feed it and take care of it, and something went wrong. And it might have been my fault or it might not have been my fault, but it doesn't matter because you still have these feelings of, I failed. And so, all that to say, working with animals is not for the faint of heart, because you do make mistakes and things do go wrong. And I learned along the way that even the people that have working with animals their whole life have animals die. Right?
Yeah.
This happens. So we've had stillborn calves. We did have a cow die in childbirth. So she couldn't push the calf out. That was really, really difficult to see that.
Did that calf make it?
No, the calf did not make it. I think she was in labor longer than she should have been. And I probably didn't intervene soon enough. Probably should have had the vet out sooner. But she wasn't able to. It was a really wet, cold, windy spring couple days, and she was sitting and she couldn't get up. And so, yeah. Working with plants, we've also worked with plants a lot, and plants also die, but you don't quite have the same emotional investment in your tomato plant. But
yeah, especially when you have hundreds and
hundreds and hundreds of plants. Yeah, but that's certainly, we've certainly failed a lot with the vegetables too. So
has there ever been any major crop failure or?
Oh yeah, I mean every year.
every year. Yeah.
Well, last year it didn't rain from the first week of August until November?
Yeah.
We didn't get any rain. So we lost an entire cutting of hay, thousands of dollars. We lost different vegetable crops that we couldn't water. So there's disease. One year we lost our entire crop of watermelons because the crows decided to fly down onto my field and peck through the skins of every single watermelon. And I've grown watermelon for 15 years, so why did the crows peck the watermelons that year, but not any of the other 14 years ever?
Yeah. And
they got every one.
I guess that's what's nice about having diversity.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because it helps protect you in the other areas, right? When something fails, there's still something else. And now, of course, losing cows, that's a big monetary investment, and that's now you've got a large carcass that needs to be dealt with as well.
Yeah, for sure. Diversity really helps, especially when it's a business. So then, there's other things that can make up for it. But that's part of having a homestead and it's a great lesson too for us as people and for our kids, because you have to learn, our limitations, our weaknesses, our failings. You have to learn how to forgive yourself and give yourself mercy and extend it to the people around you. If you don't do that, you're quickly going to create a pretty miserable community.
Yeah.
Because you're going to personally be miserable, and then you're going to make everyone else miserable around you. So we got to learn mercy for ourselves. One of the ways that, just to talk to you a little bit more about how the kids are involved, I think it's really important because everyone wants to get a homestead because you've got your kids and you want to give them something to do and you want to teach them
or they get a homestead and they don't have kids or don't want to have kids.
Right, there's that possibility too. So the kids, it's a perfectly beautiful natural environment for raising kids. And it really works well, especially if you can work peacefully with your kid in age-appropriate ways. So, working along with that 6, 7, 8-year-old, they love being with mom and dad. They love doing things. We always tried not to push them too hard, giving them actual responsibilities that they had to do these things, but trying to balance that and not make it miserable. It really helps if there's a group of people and they're not by themselves. We learned how to, maybe they have a friend that they like working with. We would include them as much as possible. So getting my different ages. I get up in the morning. I'll get my 9-year-old son will have to get up. It's a special time that he can spend with Dad. So I get him up. Maybe it's dark. We go do some chores. We can see the sunrise together. It's a great time to maybe offer some words of fatherly wisdom.
Yeah.
It's just really subtle. Just think of something, and maybe it's something about. I think one thing I did last summer was about thankfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you get up in the morning, you have to look around and think of one thing to be thankful for. And I would just say things like that intentionally to your kids.
So is that something that you, that type of fatherly relationship, how did that change from the first couple of kids to, now that you have 9, do you plan it out now? And
At the beginning, of course, you don't have any idea. I mean, you know about fatherhood from your own father, good or bad. Everyone has a father, and there's always something good you learn from any father in the world. There's always something good, and then you look around and you kind of look maybe in your community and say you got an uncle or a grandfather,
mm-hmm.
and you find things that you want to emulate. So there's always a starting point, but essentially you don't really know what you're doing, right? You're kind of learning. And once I got to stay home, I would say there was a huge change, because all of a sudden, and you don't think about this, but what would it be like if you were able to eat 3 meals a day with your kids?
Right.
Okay, well, what if there was 6 of them and they were all under 10 years old? Like that's pretty intense, and it's in some ways that's a little more difficult for certain men, particularly, going off to work, you just don't have that same experience. You don't have to manage those kids all through the day.
Yeah, I know sometimes when I'm out and I pick up the phone and I hear we have 2 kids and just hear them in the background, and I'm man, how's she putting up with this?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a little different when I'm there, but hearing it over the phone too, I'm like, can I go now?
And in some ways, it doesn't really matter how many kids you have, because 2 kids your hands are full, you're overwhelmed. But being home, we really were able to set up some very clear expectations to make that more enjoyable. So, for example, regular meal times,
mm-hmm.
an expectation for the kid, what they had to do before they came to the meal. This chore is going to be done, your hands are going to be washed, things like that. You're going to set the table. So there was a routine, the kids knew what to expect. And then at the table is the time where you're really developing your family dynamic.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to decide what your family dynamic is going to be. And you have to decide, are the kids going to rule your family dynamic, or are you as parents going to order the family relationships under yourself? And you can certainly be too heavy-handed about it, but we had particular expectations that there was going to be a basic table manners, maybe just one conversation going on at the table, so you weren't just going to be arguing and fighting. And when it got too chaotic and the kids got older, we would say, okay, for the first 5 minutes of this meal, no kids are allowed to talk. And that gave a chance to serve the food for maybe Tess and I to exchange a few words. And then, ideally, maybe I would start some type of a conversation or ask the kids about their day or something.
Yeah.
But all of those things could happen because I had the time to be with them during meal times. And you could do it once a day. You could have 1 meal a day together too. But because it was 3 times a day, it just got so overwhelming if the kids were allowed to dominate and control the entire atmosphere in the room.
Yeah.
So
it's stressful as a parent, but I gotta imagine, I don't remember what it's like to be a kid necessarily.
Sure, yeah,
you know, but I gotta imagine it's not very easy on them, on their stress load either. You know, like they crave everything that anything else in this world does. You know, some order, some structure.
For sure.
You know, but creativity and some randomness too.
And then when they want silly time, we would have silly meals too. And so we would allow, get the 4 to 6 year olds, you know, what are they going to do? They're just silly that day. Maybe we'll sing silly songs during the meal, or you know, if the kid can't sit still, I'll make him run around the table 5 times. So it's chaos and the silliness, but there's like a little bit of order, and you're kind of directing it, and it's not just miserable for you and your wife every single meal.
Sit down and be quiet.
Shut up, eat your food. I can't take it.
But I don't like broccoli.
So all these things, you're just developing natural virtues along the way, patience, and really learning. You got to learn how to like your kids. It takes a long time. You got to learn what they're like. They got to learn what you're like. You got to learn how to get along with them. You have to learn how to redirect them. And eventually, you know, ideally, you're learning how to live together as a family, which is, you know, probably the most beautiful thing in the entire world, when families live together peacefully.
So could you speak on? Part of me is not even sure how to exactly ask this, but the health benefits. You know, there's physical and psychological and spiritual aspects of homesteading, of taking something that you've growing something, eating it, and doing it as a family. Could you maybe elaborate more on that and about the benefits of health and and where you've come from, what you've learned?
That's a great question. It's an indescribable experience to make a meal, serve it to your family, and serve it to other people, and everything at that meal you've produced on the farm. It's indescribable. You have a whole new understanding of the world, of your inherent dignity as a person, that I didn't buy anything from General Mills, or the Kellogg's, or any of these other wicked, evil corporations that rule our world. So I would say there's that. You just by the very fact that you're able to eat a more natural, wholesome diet. Ideally, you're doing this organic, but you know, the food is so much better for you than anything you can buy in the grocery store. I mean, the food, there's not words to express how terrible the food system is in this country. And any immigrant who comes from any country around the world, and I talk to a lot of them, they say they don't know what they can even buy to eat because the food is so disgusting.
No kidding.
And they're coming from, a family from Africa, Ecuador, Peru, obviously Germany, the European countries, Eastern Europe. I've had people from China on the farm. That's all the same thing. How can you Americans eat this stuff that's so terrible?
Yeah.
And half of it's outlawed in their countries.
Right.
Like, you're not even allowed to call it food and put it on the shelf. It's illegal.
I know.
And we eat it.
I know your wife. I've taken one of her terms of just calling certain foods poison.
It's poison, right? You are
that can rub
yourself.
people the wrong way sometimes, but really, like.
But it's honest.
I quite frankly, you know, and I grew up, my dad operated a convenience store. Yeah. I ate sugar,
me
candy,
too,
like all this stuff, like all the candy, all the processed package, you know, that. Yeah. You know, Wednesday nights we had Kraft singles with in ramen noodle soup, right? Just you know, my mom would crack an egg. I'm not gonna lie, I still really enjoy my ramen, but now I'll get organic, good stuff. You know, occasionally I have been known to sneak a piece of that crappy American cheese in it for the nostalgia, right? But Trying to not eat.
And we're all, everyone's on a different food journey, and that's totally understandable.
It is a journey.
It's a journey, but when you're on a homestead, you have an opportunity that most people don't have, and you can produce, and it really can, it will make a big difference in your health by producing and eating these things. The other big benefit for your health is that you can be a lot more physically active.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge problem in this country. Maybe you have a white-collar job, you're sitting all day, but even kids in school, they're not active enough. They're just not doing enough. And we all know the problem with the video games and the smartphones and everything, and how many hours people are on those. Even so, there's, in our opinion, kids should be outside. They should experience the weather year-round. Yeah. They should be active. They should be working and playing. And these are natural parts of human development that you need. And I think often there's other benefits that you don't think about. So as far as even like getting sleep at night, when you're on a homestead, you're doing this work. For me, it's a whole lot easier to go to sleep at night when I'm tired. Physically, my body is tired. In my opinion, particularly for men, our bodies are made to do something physical, and it's very unnatural to commute an hour to work, sit in your office for 8 or 9 hours, commute an hour back. You got 11 hours of the day. Yeah. You're essentially sitting in an indoor climate-controlled environment, and it's not natural, it's not healthy, and I understand why men do it. I'm not saying quit your job or anything, but you'd just be surprised at what your life is like making the change to actually doing 2 hours of work a day or whatever, 3 hours of work a day.
I had probably somebody as well come work for me part-time 2 summers ago, and I believe he's in his 60s, and he was telling me at the end of the summer he had his testosterone levels checked, and his doctor's like, man, what happened? He's like, I didn't change anything. I was just working with Brandon outside,
Wow, that's amazing.
And he's in shape, yeah. Good, yeah. Healthy, active. They eat well, but just that extra going back outside. Yeah. I was outside building a deck in the Poconos last week, and it was cold. We're right next to a lake.
Last week was frigid.
But you know what? Just put the layers on, and I worked with a couple buddies, and we had a good time and got the thing built. Took a little longer and slower than otherwise it would have, but I don't know. I hear people talk about the weather. Maybe it's a personality thing, and I just find ways to enjoy it. I thoroughly, really enjoy being outside and all of that, but
for sure.
They say, look at the clouds and you'll have light thoughts, all these analogies.
And I won't speak for the women, but I know that's, there's a lot of similarities. There's many, many women that can do the physical work, that like the physical work. Maybe not quite as much, but maybe they can work just as hard as the men, and they like doing it, so more power to them if they do that. But it's certainly just that movement, that being outside, really, really healthy. So
so do you have any? What are the updates for the farm, for your life? Are you thinking about next steps? Anything you want to circle back to and try to restart or tweak a little bit?
Yeah, we're a small farm business, and in my experience, you don't ever achieve financial stability where you can just kind of let your guard down and let everything kind of go on autopilot. It's very intense trying to earn a living off of this type of a small farm thing. So we're always, we're never really comfortable. I've seen a few small farms that are very successful and they can achieve a little bit more financial success and a little more comfort, but for the most part I see a lot of them that are always kind of teetering and like, is there going to be enough, and a lot of them don't make it. So and the other thing that's happening is that I'm getting older, so entering my 50s, I've done a lot of physical work in my life since being a teenager. A lot of, your body just kind of takes a beating all the time. And certain people, seems like certain people just have more, physically they can keep doing it for longer, but keep watching my body break down and think, oh man, what's happening? And how am I going to respond here? So
yeah, and what's going to happen to what you've been working on.
So one of the joys of our farming life, unexpected joys, is that we've had a Mexican who's been coming up for quite a few years now. He came up as a young man, and then he came up as an older man, and we ended up visiting and meeting his family, and we went to his wedding, and now he's coming up with 2 children. And so every year, Andres is taking over more responsibility on the farm for the actual management of the vegetable and animal operation. So he's being trained, as a replacement for a lot of the things that I do. He's very good at it. And he's 25, so he's got, got a lot of years ahead of him, a lot more strength than I do. So that's kind of the dream, is that we can successfully figure out a way to get a green card for Andres and his wife. Again, it's expensive and long-term process, but we're trying to navigate through that. And so that he can manage more of the farm. At this point, I've got, my kids keep getting older, and it means less of them are available to be working on the farm. So they're all discerning at the different ages of their life. What do they want to do? How hard do they want to work to make money? What are they interested in? So I'm not sure where else I was going with that, but those are some of the, you're always in transition. You always have another season to look forward to. Spring is coming, then summer's coming, then fall's coming, winter, and then this person, in this season, this person all of a sudden is going off to college, so there's a gap, so someone has to fill in what this person was responsible for and what they were doing.
Right.
So and really that type of change, I would say, energizes me. It's really interesting to me. I certainly miss the things that, things are working well and then something goes away.
Yeah.
But it also just gives me energy and life, and it just makes me feel like I'm a part of this changing world that's predictable, but it's still always changing.
Right. Yeah, I think about that in conversations with my wife, where we want to do the homesteading thing. We enjoy doing more for ourselves and with the community and being family focused. But there's that question in the back of our mind with young kids.
Yeah.
What are they going to be interested in? What are they going to do in the future? Where are they going to live?
Yeah.
How's that going to change?
Yeah. You really have no idea. I mean, you really
and
can't.
it's scary.
Right, and we have to release our kids, right? We release them to pursue what they decide to do. And so yeah, but it's very difficult to figure that all out. One of the things that we have started to do as well is teaching homesteading skills to people. We do have an annual conference, which is on Labor Day weekend, the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. This is the 3rd annual conference. And that's an opportunity for people to come sign up for a particular, maybe a 2-hour workshop. I think you led one on butchering chickens one time. Maybe it's an herbalism, maybe it's making bread. But we think that homesteading skills are not limited to people that own an acre or more of land.
That's one thing I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, we think that homesteading is defined as someone who becomes a producer. So we're all consumers.
Sure.
But when you start to produce something, that's the key in my mind of being a homesteader. You got to produce something. So can you do it in an apartment? Absolutely. You can make soap in an apartment, right? You can make tea. You can buy in your ingredients. You can. So there's really an infinite number of things you can do, but we think that the world would be a better place and people would be a lot healthier if they learned how to produce something, anything.
Yeah.
So that's why we have these classes. That's what we want to share with people.
There is a lot to be said about that. I mean, you could countless pages could be written about that, but it's, for me, I know that's just, I've lived it and I've learned it. The experience of it just tells me, trust me, if you produce something, you'll be healthier, you'll be happier, more joyful, be more at peace because of the process, because of the failure, because of the change, because of having to make hard decisions, but all of that and so much more.
It's kind of a creative energy that you kind of can tap into that I think that we're all called to have. We have this ability to be co-creators in the world. Yeah. And so even, buy a gallon of milk off your local farm and learn how to turn it into yogurt.
Sure, yeah.
And the great thing about that is you're going to save $30 on yogurt every month or every week. So,
Sure. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
I was telling you how I need a cow, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But once you start creating things, you quickly learn that it's not hard to create more than you can use.
Right.
Like you can create a gallon of yogurt in 24 hours, but it's going to take you longer than that to eat it.
Yeah.
I think you can create 5 gallons of yogurt in 24 hours. So you quickly have something to offer to the world that you didn't have before. And that offering that you make to the world, you have a couple options. You can gift it to people. So there's people that may actually need it, like they can't afford it, but they need it. You have people that you can just do it as an act of appreciation, thankfulness for them. And then it's perfectly legitimate and valid to sell what you've created because it has value. Yeah. And people will pay money for your fantastic product that you made. You bought the beeswax and you turned it into these artistic beeswax candles. Well, that's very valuable to some people, and they would, in many cases, you'll find they would rather buy it from you than from Amazon. So therefore, not only are you producing something, you get the money back to pay for your project, and maybe you need a piece of equipment or to buy the next round of materials. So it's really learning. I think when you become a producer, you learn that the world is a place of abundance and not a place of scarcity. And that's another principle of permaculture, that we live in a super abundant world, and it's not a world where resources are absolutely limited and we're all just scraping by and trying to find them. Actually, just go plant 10 tomato plants in your raised bed and try to find out how many tomatoes you're going to get off of that.
How wealthy do you consider yourself now versus 30 years ago?
We're blessed beyond, you can't measure it monetarily. So the things that we have are things you cannot buy. So you can't buy can't buy yourself a marriage, for example. You can't buy yourself kids that are happy and that like each other, right? It doesn't, money doesn't solve those problems. So we, we're continuously just amazed at how blessed and thankful that we are to be able to do this, because we know how many people, wish they could live in a rural setting. We know many young families that are actively looking for how that can possibly work, and we're trying to assist them as best we can and figure out how to make that possible. But certainly monetarily, like, it's a completely different picture. We don't have fraction of the money that we could have had if we had just worked, a standard career. You buy your house, it triples in value, you sell your house and you have $300,000 in equity or whatever, or 500 or 800, or, people have a lot of equity from these homes, and we're living in a home that's never going to be sold, right? So we're never selling. The farmhouse that was built in this, well, we don't know exactly when it was built, probably the 1750s or 60s, before there was a country, so just overwhelming thankfulness, and then trying to be smart and use the resources well, trying to be generous. Those are, I think everyone has the same challenges with that. You're trying to do the best you can. You try to use what's been given to you. You try to be generous to people. Try not to become bitter and angry at the world.
Yeah,
it's hard because there's so much negativity. I mean, just follow politics for 5 years and try not to become angry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And especially just on the farm side of things, so many people, the farms have just been lost.
Oh yeah.
You mentioned the word small farm. What's a small farm for you? A small farm for maybe a giant farm for somebody else who's small farming on a quarter of an acre, or small farming on 500 acres.
Yeah. That's a good point, because there's so many different sizes of homesteads. I mean, your half acre, your quarter acre, your city lot is a homestead, really. So your apartment. So.
Yeah, it's there's no greater thing than knowing that you've inspired somebody else and encouraged them just by your example. I think about individuals who have come over to help us out on a project, and then we feed them a meal from what we've grown, and they say, "This is the best whatever I've tasted," or whatever. It's like, man, this is how we eat every day.
Yeah.
And in some regards, that's sad and a little scary, but in other regards, you see that hope, and you see the thankfulness that they have, and that's right. It's so nice to be the person to have that influence, and it's humbling.
It is, absolutely, for sure.
You've got a lot of power.
Yeah, absolutely, right. We're all influencing people all the time. We certainly don't realize the tenth of it, but yeah, and I guess, as this is a YouTube channel, one of the lessons we had to learn over the years was not to judge a farm by its Facebook page. So you see Facebook page, Instagram, you're out there with the most beautiful, cleanest pictures.
Yeah.
And we've really worked hard over the last 5 to 10 years in our messaging and our emails to share the things that are our challenges with our customers and our friends. But most of the things that cause a homestead to be successful are all the things that you're doing that's hidden. And it's all the little sacrifices, maybe it's suffering even, that you're getting up in the cold, dark morning, you're going out in the night, you've had this failure, you're trying to mentally stay positive. So all of those hidden things, same thing with your marriage and your kids, but it's the things that you don't see that you're doing in the secret that really make the success visible. So, I guess that's just an encouragement for the people that are thinking about homeschooling, that there's a lot of these just really difficult, challenging things that no one's ever going to see that you have to do. You have to get up, you got to be consistent, you got to overcome your failures, solve these problems. And we didn't even talk about asking for help. I mean, that is
huge.
It's huge, isn't it? You got to ask for help. I mean,
the idea of a self-made man or woman is first of all, it doesn't exist, and it's sad.
It's a complete myth.
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
I don't know what I would have done. I remember I took my first job as a farmhand after college. I was told to go put a hook on this hay door up in the barn, and they gave me the drill gun. Mm-hmm. I had no idea how to change the bit on this thing. No one ever showed me.
You never had a drill yet.
I had to look up a YouTube video. It wouldn't load. I was crying.
Yeah.
22 years old.
Yeah.
And then I can't tell you how many times I've taught grown men and women how to use ratchet straps.
Right.
Yep. And asking for help.
In order to be here today, I mean, there's hundreds of people that have come out and volunteered their time. There's hundreds of people that I've asked for help because I don't know everything. I'm not that smart. I needed knowledge, or needed a particular tool. But the number of people that have worked on my equipment, you can't even. The generosity of other people toward me has been just too much. So try never to forget that. But yeah, you have to ask for help. And really, I've seen a few people do this where their idea of homesteading is buying land off by themselves in the middle of nowhere. Really, don't do that. It's a terrible idea. It's the recipe for making your spouse bitter and having your kids resent you, and things fall apart pretty quickly because you need to live with other people in some kind of a community. It doesn't have to be next door, but it has to be in close proximity, 5 minutes away or whatever. You have to have people around that can support you. So
I don't think it's ever really successfully been done before anyway.
No, I mean, Little House on the Prairie wasn't successful, right?
Yeah.
You read all these stories in the frontier. Well, he kept moving and they didn't really stay anywhere in one spot, and then it kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Versus, communities that would move together.
Yeah.
There's certainly struggles and challenges to that. But,
and community, it's something that's very, I would say, very difficult, not only to find, but I don't think community is something you go I don't think it's necessarily something you're going searching and you find a community. I think it's something that you develop around you.
Yeah.
So, certainly sometimes in your life you might have an opportunity to move to this particular state or this particular region for a particular reason, but we moved out here to be close to my in-laws. But the community really has, you have to develop it, has to grow around you. And it's really unexpected how it happens, the least likely sources contribute to your homestead. You wouldn't think it at all, but
yeah, you were
the neighbors, the neighbors.
You were looking for firewood for your oven to make your bread, right?
Yeah,
and some guy showed up at your store yesterday, and
Yep.
lo and behold, he had firewood, nice dry stuff to sell you, right?
Yeah. And now we have a new relationship, a new connection.
Yeah.
So.
And he was excited. Him and his wife, they were like, "Wow, this is cool,"
Yeah. It happens to us every week at this point because we have the store is now our outward facing way we interact with the community. So it's been super fun to meet these people that we wouldn't have otherwise had a chance to meet. So.
Well, I think we've got a lot for people to digest with,
certainly do,
with all of this.
There's a lot of ground to cover. Yeah.
I'm so thankful, and you know, really, who knows how that'll benefit those who see this video. But for me, it was good to just check in with you again and sit down. Thank you so much for your time. And
yeah, people who are interested in following our farm, it's willowhavenfarmpa.com, on Facebook, Willow Haven Farm, and also Willow Haven Farm General Store. Subscribing to our email list gets you regular updates from Tessa. She's been writing weekly email updates for about 5, 6 years. So it really gives you kind of an inside picture into what the farm is about, what the life is like. She also makes YouTube videos, so Willow Haven Farm is on YouTube, and she probably has 300 videos that she's made walking around the farm just talking about things. So lots of stuff out there.
And we will link all of that to the video.
Link it up.
Too. Yeah.
And yeah, if you can come to the homesteading conference, is Labor Day weekend. We do serve brick oven pizzas for lunch. It is a conference, so we do ask people to pay a registration fee. We do pay our speakers, so it enables us to get high quality speakers in, and it's been a great experience for the last couple of years.
Great.
Thanks for coming
Thank
up,
you.
Brandon. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.